Hey, everybody, welcome back. Craig Schaub here with George Thomas, our film critic from Ohio. George is here. We've been off for a couple of weeks, so we've accumulated quite a bit of holiday fun here, George. Well, maybe not so much fun with some of the movies that we'll be discussing today, but how have you been? Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
Had a great Thanksgiving. I had a great time at Universal Studios in Orlando, which is one of the big reason we missed 1 week.
Yeah.
I saw a certain movie down there.
You did, and it wasn't for the good, huh? So we will get started with that. Wicked for Good, sort of the box office darling, I guess, of the early fall season here. Although I do wonder, George, if this movie will make as much as the first movie, which made about $758 million. Wicked for Good has made over $400 million in just a couple of weeks. But you also have to remember it's getting ready to face some stiff competition here as the holidays continue with Avatar on the horizon, among other movies. Wicked for Good, you saw it. I have seen it as well. I have many thoughts, but let's get your thoughts first.
You ignored my advice, huh? Okay.
What's your advice? What was your advice? I'm sorry.
I gave that movie a C. What did I think of it? I couldn't totally trash it because of its scale. It's got some ambition, but it was a bloody hot mess.
Yeah.
It really was. The cuts were jarring. The overall editing was jarring. The narrative was lost. And the big problem with Wicked, and I know you haven't seen the stage production, but it's a weak second movie based on a weak second act of the play.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the height of that play is defying gravity at the end of the first act. That's the height of it. And that's when I felt something at that musical when I saw it when it toured years ago.
Yeah.
As impressive as the vocal work was from Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande in that second movie, the songs are meh.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, their performances are still great, but it's sloppy.
Yeah.
And it's all over the place. And it's like, really?
Yeah.
I was looking forward to John Chu being able to, like he did with that first film, elevate the material. And he did that with the first film. And there's you don't like to do the comparisons, but given they're essentially the same film, you can't separate them. He wasn't able to elevate the material this time around.
Yeah. This is interesting because I know you really enjoyed the first movie. Did you give it an A minus or was it in that B plus range?
I was still in recovery. I would have given it it would have probably would have made my top 10 for the year.
Okay.
I was in recovery after surgery.
Yeah. And I know that you liked that movie more than I liked it, even though I did like it. And I think here I actually liked this one more than you liked the Wicked for Good sequel, only because there is enough pomp and circumstance with production, costuming, and those performances that I think it works. Now, I might be grading on a curve here because of it, but I kind of gave it that 2.5 out of 4-star range. Not quite recommendable, but not quite a train wreck. Although I completely understand where you're coming from, and I think I even messaged you after I saw the movie that there were parts that felt rushed. There were parts that felt sluggish and just a little bit too much going on. Editing was a problem. The overall issues with a musical is you've got to have good songs. The songs are not there. You kind of want there to be that defying gravity moment, and there's nothing there. There's always this push for that emotional connection that you might have with a film. I kept looking for it, and I kept wondering, am I going to feel that connection to it? I didn't. I kept looking and trying to uncover something that I could get on board with, and I just felt empty-handed in a lot of sequences that really shouldn't have been, because this is supposed to be where the first one is setting everything up. And I know I made fun of it, like they went to college for it seemed like 2 hours, this and that, but it seemed like this movie should have been better in the sense that it was the emotional payoff of these stories coupling with maybe people's fondness for the Wizard of Oz and maybe, getting a glimpse into that a little bit. And I just felt like a lot of the Wizard of Oz callbacks, were rushed, and they didn't really seem to make sense. And there didn't seem to be any, not that there's supposed to be continuity between this and the Wizard of Oz, but I felt like there should be some continuity. And then you have these rushed sequences where we get the Tin Man and we get the other characters. And Coleman Domingo, what is he doing here? He gets nothing as the Cowardly Lion. And quite frankly, that story doesn't make any sense to me of why he turns against Elphaba.
Yeah, no, none of it made any sense. And my big gripe, you referenced the Wizard of Oz, and God knows I don't know what he was like in L. Frank Baum's original novel, but they made him. You're used to that 1939 portrayal, right?
Yeah, right.
And it's like you talk about the Tin Man not having a heart, right? But in that 1939 version, he had all the heart in the world, and that seemed to be lost in that character. And he was, for lack of a better term, a bitterman. And it's like, there's some choices there that were definitely not working for me. And it was weird being at Universal the week the movie opened.
Right.
I was at the Wicked experience down there, watching these folks line up for Glinda and Elphaba meet and greet, and just thinking to myself, you have no idea what you're in store for with this second film. And hey, more power to anybody who's seen it. And it's not fair to make this comparison. I was expecting something more akin to the culmination of Lord of the Rings than with respect to what I got with this. And the sad part is, for me, it's the National Board of Review. I don't know if you saw.
I did see that,
and it squeaked in their top, and I'm like, what?
And an AFI, if I'm not mistaken, too.
What?
Yeah.
Is this merely for the ambition, or what?
I think here's the problem I have with all of this. So the first one came out and it was a good movie. Now I understand that you liked it a lot and a lot of people liked it a lot more even than you. But I felt like when you do this whole, we're going to give everybody Oscars or nominations, like you almost can't walk it back that now Ariana Grande has to be nominated for Best Supporting Actress, right? Now, I will say this, I think she and Cynthia Erivo do the best they can with the material they're given, but that's not a precursor for saying they deserve another Academy Award or a nomination because they were nominated for the first one, because this is a step down. Even though I wasn't a huge fan of the first one, I can at least acknowledge that there were some moments that were stellar, and I think the overall presentation and package were a little bit more cohesive and tighter. Here it wasn't. It was just kind of a unmitigated mess at times, and then also a really quickly hurried pace at times as well. So it just was very disjointed. And I think that now you've pigeonholed yourself into, well, everybody loved the first one, so now we have to go in and love this one equally because it like you said, it gets that treatment of Lord of the Rings or the ending of this big finale of a franchise, albeit only a 2-movie franchise versus like a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 movie franchise from the other series that we've seen in years past. But it amounts to and like you said, I have not seen the stage production, so I can't tell you what should or shouldn't be there, what worked, didn't work, that from that perspective. But when I was told the stage production is only like a little over 2 hours, right, total, how do you get, you're on mute.
It felt a lot longer.
And these movies are more than 4 hours combined, way more than 4 hours combined. And I'm thinking, do you get that it's a little stretched out? And the second one is stretched out, whereas had I known that Defying Gravity was guaranteed to be the best thing about Wicked, I would have just said, why make another one? Like, end it on a high note, maybe a final sequence there, and that's the third act, big finale, but then maybe like a final sequence to kind of tie some things together. But honestly, if I knew that the second act was this stretched out, I just don't know that it really deserved a film other than just for the commercialism aspect of it, knowing that it's going to make a boatload of money and get you Oscar nominations and a few wins here and there.
And that's how I felt walking out of the play. If I had known Defying Gravity was the highlight, and mind you, it's a fantastic highlight in the stage production, it's even more of a highlight in the film.
We watched it. My wife and I watched it with her family right before we went to see Wicked for Good, like the day before, and it's a goosebump inducing sequence because Cynthia Erivo just eats that song, and it's a great song in general, and it feels like a culmination of the slow pacing was culminated in a great little last 10-15 minutes. Now, I know some people don't like the last, how they use Defying Gravity in the movie where they're, cutting in between like different other scenes coming in where they're like, chasing after her, and they have, cut from the music to just have the music playing over top of guards running around or the monkeys running around or whatever it may be looking for and stuff. So I get that too. If you're a fan where it's maybe a little bit less disjointed on the stage, but from a movie perspective, I think that scene works very well. Yeah. And the song's great, and Cynthia Erivo knocks it out of the park. And for the most part, they knock it out of the park singing in this movie. It's just the songs are just instantly forgettable, and no great production or costuming or performances can save what kind of amounts to being a mess, a beautiful mess at times, but a mess.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well,
that's how I started off my vacation in Universal.
Yeah. Well, that's not a great. I'm glad you had a good rest of your trip there, and then we'll move on from Wicked for Good, just like we've forgotten all the music from that movie. We'll move on quickly here to some movies that may not be so bad. I know that a big Oscar contender this season is Hamnet. This is I think you put it in your review that this is sort of a nice return to form for Chloe Zhao, who, of course, made Nomadland, an Oscar-winning movie. She did make the Eternals movies for Marvel Disney, and that didn't go over so well. But here she gets a little bit more into her wheelhouse, I think. Tell us a little bit about this movie.
You know what? A lot of people are going to go into this thing expecting Shakespeare in Love. I don't know if whoever watches this is going to remember that film, because it was sold as a look at what inspired Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. Right. This is a film about what inspired the masterpiece Hamlet. And they couldn't be two more different films. That was a satirical comedy. That one, Shakespeare in Love, lampooned the heck out of Hollywood and all of its pretenses and everything. This is a straightforward, and in some ways, it's a Shakespearean tragedy.
Yep.
It's beautifully shot. The performances are tremendous, and it tells how. The interesting part for me, the most compelling part for me, it's told mostly from the perspective of Agnes. Or Agnes, they pronounce it differently. Who's portrayed by Jessie Buckley. And her perspective, taking care of the Shakespeare home, raising their family, as William Shakespeare is off in London, making a name for himself, getting wealthy, and building the Globe Theatre, basically. And, he comes home. He's able to bond with his children. And, he has an older daughter, Susanna, and he has the twins, Judith and Hamnet. Twins are especially close, as you might expect, but Hamnet is really close to his father. He's the only boy. Well, tragedy strikes. It looks as if some version of the plague is going to claim Judith, but instead it takes Hamnet. And that sends the couple on diverging paths. And, you know, Agnes wants to throw herself into her homeland, working, keeping up the home, raising her two daughters now. You know, William Shakespeare wants to throw himself into his work, and he does. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, I could give away the rest of this, but I don't want to because I want people to see this movie because it's so beautiful and so well acted. Ultimately, it's about the effect that art can have when given the opportunity on a very personal level and a very general level. Because it was like, there are scenes in the Globe Theater that reminded me of when you're seeing a fantastic movie with an audience, a packed audience, and you're all reacting at the same time. It's very well done. Paul Mescal is great as Shakespeare. Emily Watson, a perennial critical darling back in the 90s, late 80s, shows up. And, you know, a lot of people won't see this movie. They won't. And that's a tragedy in itself. But it's absolutely worth the effort. It really is.
Yeah. Well, and I know a lot of awards buzz for the movie in general, but also Jessie Buckley. You know, we've talked a lot, especially this year, about the likes of Timothée Chalamet, Austin Butler being sort of this new crop of movie star actors, like the next crop of great actors. I think Paul Mescal is another one of those guys who really could. And I know he did Gladiator 2 last year, but he's been one of these actors that he doesn't seem to just pigeonhole himself into specific Hollywood type roles. Now, obviously, Gladiator 2 is one of those, but that's few and far between when you look at the rest of his filmography. You know, this is a guy that seems like he's in that same category as those other two actors we've talked quite a bit about this year.
Oh, it's about the roles apparently, and less than the money. You know, yeah. A lot of actors should remember that if you do the roles, the money's going to follow eventually. Now, it helps to have pretty boy looks like Austin Butler.
Sure, yeah, right.
But I can appreciate his attitude, and so there we go. And he's fantastic here. He's vulnerable. He's strong. He's vulnerable. And you know what? It's interesting to see the portrayal because, you know, it's kind of an interesting fact that we're back to, in this society, it seems that it's not cool to be educated. Mm. You know what I mean?
Right.
And there are scenes in the movie where Shakespeare is abused by his father for being educated. And not only being educated, but tutoring young students to pay off his father's debt and being ridiculed for it.
Right.
And it's those kind of things that really left an impression on me.
Well, I know you gave the movie an A- in your review, and it's good to see that Chloe Zhao seems to have found her footing again after not necessarily her fault, but you know, the Eternals just did not resonate. But obviously, she's a very skilled filmmaker, so it's good to see that she's kind of back to her roots and returning to form here.
It is indeed.
Yeah. Well, another Oscar hopeful, and this is another Oscar darling, Noah Baumbach, George Clooney, Laura Dern come in here with Jay Kelly. Adam Sandler is also here getting some Oscar buzz for Best Supporting Actor. You know, obviously we've talked about it before, and it goes without saying in the industry, but Hollywood loves themselves. And here we have a movie about the industry, and a lot of times those movies resonate pretty well with the Academy. But tell us, is this a home run here for Academy Awards nominations at the very least?
Nominations, I think so. But you're right. Hollywood does love themselves. But the thing is, that makes what Noah Baumbach did here so much more challenging. I mean, how do you make a film about a superstar actor who's got all the money in the world, all the pull in the world, and make it relatable? I mean, that's the big question, and he pulls it off fantastically. Helps that you have George Clooney. It helps that you have Adam Sandler, but he also has a very strong script that he co-wrote, a nice perspective. And also, again, another gorgeously filmed movie that likes the Italian countryside
Yeah.
and loves Europe. George Clooney is fantastic. It's a movie about his character, Jay Kelly's reflection, as he tries to stay connected to one daughter and is dealing with basic estrangement from another. Excuse me, I'm about to cough again. So bear.
That's okay.
So he's dealing with issues with his daughter. He goes to Europe after turning down this film festival tribute to try to maintain a connection with his teenage daughter who was planning to go off to Johns Hopkins University in the fall. Along the way, he starts to, I don't know that he really learns, but members of his staff, his publicist played by Laura Dern, her assistant played by, and I don't remember the actor's name, they drop off. Eventually the only two people left are his bodyguard and his manager, Ron. And the bodyguard is there because he's a bodyguard. Ron is there, you'd think, because he's his manager, but no and not no. There is a relationship there that stretches back years. Ron is very keen about it. He's always been, they're codependent is what they are, but he's always been Jay Kelly's handler, protector is more accurate. And, you gradually get the feeling that the sentiment hasn't been returned. And it all comes to a head during this tribute when one daughter doesn't want to show up. The other daughter is in Europe, but elects to send a congratulations message. And his father, played by the irascible Stacy Keach, shows up for about 36 hours and flees after getting hammered on too much Italian wine. And he's there. And, he and Ron have a falling out. And it's a delight to see the light bulb go off in his head that he's alone while he has to watch another American actor who's also receiving a tribute. I won't go into the details as to how that happens, who has his entire family there. And he really has no one. He comes to the realization that Ron might be more family than manager and definitely friend. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a very, and I think I wrote this. It's my review runs tomorrow. It's like Jerry Maguire in a movie setting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's sort of like that. And Noah Baumbach comes up with one of the, and I hope you watch this weekend, one of the best endings, I think, in movies this year, because it's emotional, it's reflective, and it's ambiguous. And it's brilliant, I think, for that very reason. So I highly recommend this one. Yes.
Okay. I know a lot has been made over the last, several years with Adam Sandler maybe getting snubbed for Uncut Gems. lot of buzz came out even before anybody really saw this movie because of the talent around him with Noah Baumbach and George Clooney, and just an Oscar Beatty kind of movie in that movies on movies industry. Is Sandler? Do you think Sandler has the chops here to maybe score his first Oscar nomination?
He deserves it. Yes, he does. I mean, we've discussed Adam Sandler before.
Mm.
No one's going to appreciate him until he's Jerry Lewis's age, and that's comparison. Jerry Lewis didn't have anyone who appreciated him outside of France until he was in his 70s.
Sure.
And I'm sorry, he was a comedic genius of his time. He may have been ahead of his time. And I think to a certain
No problem. Take your time.
I think to a certain degree, Adam Sandler was a bit ahead of his time.
Yeah. Well, obviously, a movie that looks to score several nominations here, and it's one of those movies. Again, it's on Netflix. It will be premiering tomorrow, and I know a lot of people will probably want to see it maybe for Adam Sandler. I don't know if they know kind of what they're getting into, though, given this is not your typical Billy Madison, Adam Sandler kind of fare, but I think it's good to see people in different lights. And I've always appreciated Adam Sandler when he's not really making some of his over-the-top comedies, although I can appreciate some of his over-the-top comedy, but not usually. It wears a little thin for me, but that's fine. That happens. But, obviously we still have a couple of movies left to talk about tonight, but the Beatles anthology and Being Eddie are a couple of other things that people can watch streaming this weekend or could already watch with the Beatles anthology. This is a remaster, correct, of the 1995 miniseries?
Yeah, it's mostly a remaster, but they include a 9th episode, which is probably most personal of all because it features mind you, this was filmed in 1995, but it's footage from then. It features George, Ringo, and Paul, who were the surviving Beatles back then. Only Paul and Ringo remain now. Talking about dealing with the breakup and constructing, and I forget the song's title, from a snippet of audio, a sample from John Lennon, and trying to construct that. And they hash over their differences. And you see them fall into their creative rhythm. And that's a very interesting aspect of it. But you know what? I didn't become a big Beatles fan. I didn't become a big Beatles fan probably until my late 20s.
Okay.
And you want to know why? I didn't appreciate not who they were, but what they became. Now, and the beauty of the anthology is the entire series is you get a perspective of the Beatles from their beginning to their end, and it's the perfect reason. It shows perfectly why they're the Beatles, because they evolved from doing R&B covers from Chuck Berry, the Isley Brothers, to these lush rock and roll sonic symphonies like Sgt. Pepper, the White Album, all of this stuff. And it's like, are these the same dudes? They showed the evolution of a band. Now, there are plenty of bands who've been kicking around that I love, like AC/DC, that never changed a damn thing. But when a band is willing to start in one place and take creative risks throughout, you learn to appreciate it. That's what I loved about Queen. Queen never did the same thing twice.
Yeah.
And I kind of think the Beatles were a blueprint for that.
Well, and I know that there's a lot going on with the Beatles. They had that big documentary series on Disney Plus a few years ago. There are several movies in the works that I think they're all going to be directed by Sam Mendes. Paul Mescal, who we talked about earlier, is going to be, I think he's playing Paul McCartney. So There's a lot. It's like Beatles mania all over again. So it's interesting to see their popularity kind of resurfacing, at least enough for people to dive into the well here with in the entertainment industry at the very least.
He's doing 4 movies from each of the Beatles' perspective. That I got the press release for that today, and it intrigues the hell out of me.
And then isn't he doing a 5th one of all of them together? Or is that?
Let me check my box, but I'm pretty sure it's 4.
Okay. I mean, either way, it's a very ambitious thought at this point to try to do all, just kind of, I mean, and I get, maybe the Beatles are big enough to where they deserve all their own little kind of spin, and that's fine. But yeah, it's interesting to see, going back to that well, it seems to be working pretty well. Another documentary that people can watch is Being Eddie. So this is a sort of behind the scenes look at Eddie Murphy's life and career. Obviously, it's been there's been some ups and downs, and mostly ups for him as a great talent, great comedian. Obviously, I'm sure there's a lot to unpack with this, but tell us a little bit about Being Eddie.
Oh man, we're talking one of my favorite comedic actors of all time. I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way. Now, I'm not even going to be pretentious about this. Eddie Murphy produced the documentary.
Okay.
So basically, Eddie Murphy and his friends getting to say whatever the hell they want. Yeah. But in some respects, it's number one, it's very funny.
Okay.
Number two, it can be very compelling because he's very, very honest about certain things in his life. And I enjoyed that aspect of it. But he also shows that he can still be a down and dirty rascal when he wants to be. I mean, there's a moment and I'm not going to let anyone know when it happens, but there's a moment in the film. He commissioned ventriloquist puppets of Richard Pryor and Bill Cosby. And he manipulates them both, does their voices for both while they're talking to him. It's just, it's sheer Eddie Murphy, very brilliant. Yeah. And that's the kind of stuff you get. I enjoyed it a lot. I'm under no illusions about it being unbiased, because it isn't, because he's got Dave Chappelle talking about him. He's got Chris Rock talking about him. Kevin Hart talking about it. And it's like, okay, take it for what it is, enjoy it, and roll with it.
Well, he's always been a star, and like you said, he's one of those, at least one of those pillars of the action comedy community. But this is just a funny guy that, there was a time there, probably, obviously Shrek was an exception, but there was probably a time there where you wish he would have gotten better material and better movies, and then Dreamgirls happened, and I think it kind of reset him in a lot of ways. Maybe like, John Travolta got reset by Pulp Fiction, where, you can kind of finally start to see, yeah, this guy's still one of the best out there. And it's good to see, obviously you always get into those iffy gray areas when people are producing their own documentaries on themselves, but it's good to see that he's not necessarily pulling away from some of the stuff maybe that needs to be discussed. And that's admirable, I would say. And it's there's a lot of hope, I think, for Eddie Murphy, even though he's getting older and, aging out of certain roles perhaps, but I think he still has a lot of juice left in him. Obviously, he just made a Beverly Hills Cop last year, so it's not like he's, taking a back seat to anything, but I don't know, it just kind of seems like he's one of those guys that, when you get the right production around him, he can really soar, and then the movie can soar because of it.
And one of the interesting aspects of the movie, you mentioned Dreamgirls, and he talks in depth about being snubbed there, so and why he thinks it was. So there we go.
Okay. Well, I'll be interested to. I wasn't the biggest fan of Dreamgirls, although he was fantastic in Dreamgirls. But I'm glad that he got a nomination. I don't remember who should have won or if he should have won that, but sometimes it's just about getting that nomination to put you on the map, and you don't necessarily have to win. Even though obviously it would be great to win, especially if you're one of those actors that may never get to that stage ever again. You never know, but good to see. Well, we go, I guess, sort of staying in streaming, although it did get a small theatrical window release for the Academy Awards. Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery. I've got to tell you, George, I really love director Rian Johnson, who has written and directed these threequels now. I have not seen a single one of them, though. I have never seen Knives Out or Glass Onion or Here Wake Up Dead Man yet. Even though I'm a big-time Rian Johnson fan, I love Looper. I really love Brick. And I also think, as far as Star Wars goes, he's made the best Star Wars since the prequel trilogy came out with The Last Jedi. So I leave you with that. Is Wake Up Dead Man a worthy entry into the Knives Out series?
It equals the first, and it's better than the second.
Okay.
And one thing you can always appreciate about Rian Johnson's work is there's always something bubbling beneath the surface thematically. Mm. And he's very subtle about what he does and what he says in his film. Daniel Craig is back as Benoit Blanc, all-world private detective. I don't know if he's a private detective or what, but he's called in, and I just finished my review for this, by the way, to solve the mystery of a death, the perfect murder of a warrior for God priest, senior priest at an upstate New York parish.
Okay.
Of course, there's an all-star cast, as there always is with these films, that all become some suspects. And the junior priest in the parish is the main suspect. Now, the mystery is obviously the attraction here. But within the narrative here, there's this larger debate about religion and spirituality that Johnson conducts. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily between Benoit Blanc, who basically deputizes the junior priest to solve the murder with him.
Yep.
But more as to Blanc, who's a straight up atheist, secularist, reasonist, whatever you want to call it, trying to get the priest, the junior priest, played by, did I mention it's Josh O'Connor, to understand his purpose. Because the junior priest is, I don't know if I call it a crisis of faith, but there's some self-doubt there. And to me, I love the mystery part of it because it's very well done. But that aspect of the film is more interesting to me. And I loved how it played out. Daniel Craig at this point just puts the role on, has a blast, and delivers. Mm-hmm. Josh O'Connor was great. You know what? Yeah. You know what I'm surprised about, though? And I don't know if you say you haven't seen the other two. You can drop right into this one.
Okay.
Because I'd want your opinion. Because I think Glenn Close is worthy of an Oscar nomination.
There was some buzz early on, like thinking, well, is this just another one of those, we got to nominate Glenn Close because she's Glenn Close? But then other people have said, well, why not? If she's good enough, nominate her. So, and I think I don't remember if Glass Onion also scored a writing nomination, but Knives Out got a screenplay nomination. So, it's not like this series is not sniffing around the Academy Awards at, for not necessarily best picture, or, things like that, but certainly for other ancillary awards and sometimes even top 6 category awards too. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility that maybe Glenn Close might get yet another nomination.
She would deserve it. She would definitely deserve it.
All right. Well, I know our last movie, probably something you didn't really have on your scorecard for this year as being among the better movies released. It's Zootopia 2. I have to admit, again, this is another series that I have not gotten into yet. The first one came out in 2016, did well, made money, got a good critical acclaim and everything. And now we come back almost 10 years later with a sequel, but you think this sequel outdoes the first, right?
You got to understand, I was very meh on the first one. I really was. Again, going back a decade, I don't even know that I wrote a review.
Okay.
In 2016, excuse me, I was covering Akron Zip Sports and helping with the Browns. So there we have it.
Okay.
The movie was, I watched it for awards consideration. I remember that much because they sent me the Blu-ray and I'm like, I threw the Blu-ray in a pile. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
Now this one hit with me. And mind you, the first one received acclaim for its message, the subtle message about discrimination and bigotry.
Mm-hmm.
That element is here, but the humor is a lot better. Jason Bateman and Jennifer Goodwin, oddly enough, have a chemistry together.
Right.
And the message is still there, and it's a message that is going to go over the heads of kids, generally speaking, who don't understand the nature of eminent domain and corporations moving, and governments in some cases, moving minority communities to seize their land by eminent domain or whatever means necessary for highways or developments or whatever.
Right.
But, and actually, I don't know if that message will even land with a lot of adults. But that's always been a thing in this country. So, and it's done right, humor, animation. You almost think it's a Pixar film, but it's not.
Right. It kind of has that Pixar feel to it when you watch the trailers, when you as you just mentioned, the messaging behind it, and even in the first one, you kind of get like a Pixar vibe to it, honestly.
Yeah, they basically have out Pixar Pixar.
Yeah.
Man, that's an interesting thing. Because this is a Walt Disney Studios animation production.
Right. And unlike some Pixar movies, and also I guess some Disney movies that actually has made money, obviously we talked about Elio did not make money this year for Pixar, which was unfortunate because you and I both liked that movie. But Zootopia 2, holy crap, 620 million after its first weekend worldwide. That is
amazing.
Substantial take for opening weekend. Now, obviously, like we mentioned with Wicked for Good, there will be some stiff competition in the coming weeks. But wow, Zootopia 2 is probably going to have some legs and might even get into that $1 billion range, I would think.
Well, think about it this way. If it drops off just 50% this weekend, it's going to be in the $1 billion range globally.
And the first one did squeeze over $1 billion. So you almost have the same expectation really for this one, because I didn't realize the first one made that much money. And it was interesting because, it had like a $75 million domestic opening. So it wasn't like it was some, giant juggernaut of box office, success in that first weekend. It just had a good longevity to it though.
Good longevity. And I think what you're saying is, if you look at Now You See Me, Now You Don't. Mm-hmm. The box office for that is mostly international.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same with Zootopia. It's the international numbers, and that the market may not be back completely in the United States, but it seems as if the international market is coming back post-COVID.
It does. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think the international box office just seems to be outpacing domestic gross here for a lot of movies. It's really, and I think honestly, I think that probably bodes well for Avatar because we've talked about. I think I even said the last time we spoke, which was is Avatar or maybe when we did our preview for the holiday movie season, it seemed like Avatar was like the least thought of potential $2 billion movie to still come out this year. And a lot of times Avatar has crossed that $2 billion mark because the international box office has been there in addition with, the 6, 7, 800 million that it could do in the domestic market.
And I think you'll probably see that be the case again. So it's going to be
I
interesting.
was I was going to ask you. I know we, because of the holidays and all the running around. I wanted to see. Did you see the Running Man? I know no one else saw it, but I wanted to see if you actually caught that.
Yes, I did.
Thoughts?
I was not overly impressed.
Yeah.
It's Edgar Wright. There were parts that were great,
Mm-hmm.
and there were parts that were just whatever.
Yeah. Well, I guess the one benefit maybe or lack thereof for Edgar Wright is no one else saw it. So a really, really tough $61 million worldwide for that movie right now. So probably a big disappointment, I would think. That's a Paramount movie, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm sure Paramount is going to be taking a gigantic loss on that one. Obviously, the holiday movie season is more than upon us. I know we're still a couple of weeks away from Avatar, but what do you have coming up in the hopper here in the next week or two?
Oh, let's see. Well, I will have Avatar. I just a cheat. I've seen it. Let me look at the release schedule. I will have Marty Supreme, which I've seen.
Okay. Another Oscar hopeful.
Oh, it's got to get nominated out the wazoo.
Mm-hmm.
I watched Song Sung Blue today.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, you're getting a lot of advances here. That's good.
Yeah, it's critics get access to certain things at certain time of the year.
Well, and you have Critics' Choice Awards coming up here. The nominations release tomorrow, do they not?
You know, I'm not sure. I voted earlier this week, so.
Okay. All right. Well, fantastic. As always, you can read everything that George writes entertainment related on beaconjournal.com. George, as always, we appreciate you stopping by. Glad you had a great Thanksgiving. Sorry you had to see Wicked at Universal, but we will be back once again and talk more movies and streaming.
All right, sir. I'm looking forward to it.